see anything under the tab of stream now. I don't see anything, but you said we're live.
Yeah,
So
we are
should I go?
live.
Okay, good.
Okay,
But I don't.
so you
Yeah,
can
good.
start.
Hey everyone, welcome to the CBA show. This is our very first episode, and today I'm so excited to interview our amazing co-host Clarice Lin. And before I start introducing her, I just want to say a quick hi to those of you who are joining us live. Thank you so much for being here with us. And if you don't mind sharing the link of our show to other social media channels so more people can join us and hear the amazing stories that Clarice is going to share with us. And Clarice left Singapore almost 10 years ago, and she came to London. She restarted herself, rebuilt her career, and now she is a LinkedIn influencer and she's a social media marketing strategist. She frequently hosts workshops covering Instagram, Google Analytics, LinkedIn, and social media marketing. And she does so much more. So I'm really excited to hear more about the stories behind what we see on LinkedIn about Clarice and how she has overcome challenges, difficulties, self doubts, fears to become brave again and to become who she is today. So honored to interview you, Clarice.
Yes, hi, yeah. So it's great that we started this show. So I'm really excited to share about my story and to share my experiences and learnings. So yeah, it's coming to about 10 years now, coming in March. So it's been a long time.
Oh,
Sometimes I can't even believe it as well.
I'm so excited. That's so awesome. I can't wait to hear more of the stories, especially the low time and how you have come overcome the low time and rise up again. So let's get started.
Woohoo! Bring on the questions.
So first, tell us more about why you left Singapore. What inspired you to leave your home country?
I think it was sort of like I know quite a number of friends back in Singapore where they were going overseas for their studies. And actually, when I was at university, I went for this trip. Um, I was learning German, so I went to Germany, and that was my first trip overseas. It was super exciting. It's like,
Mm,
wow! And then at the end of it, after 3 weeks, I was thinking, I have to come back here again. Yeah, and so I actually did go back there for like holidays and stuff, but somehow I think it's like the life in Singapore that I envisioned wasn't the path that I sort of wanted it to be. Like I thought of a lot of things before when I was in university, and then when I step out into the working world, it didn't turn out what I wanted it to be, and I was like, okay, is life there? That's it. That's
mm-hmm.
life. So I was thinking, maybe if I go overseas, I could see something different, maybe do something different. I think in a nutshell, it's probably a little bit of like I thought the grass would be greener on the other side.
Mm, 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 mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. Was it hard for you to make that decision? I mean, like you grew up in Singapore, so was it hard for you to say goodbye to your parents, to home country, to your friends, to come to a new country?
I think it wasn't that difficult. I think one of the biggest thing I wanted to be is I wanted to see what other possibilities there were in life. And I remember I was being quite burnt out at my previous job. And I was on this holiday, so to get some time off Christmas time. And I was trying to look for inspiration and sort of like motivation in life. And somehow at this airport, I have to show you, I saw this book, The Art of Non-Conformity. I don't know, at that point I was like, oh my goodness, like I was looking for inspiration in life, like what to do in life, and I saw this book. Set your own rules, live the life you want. change the
Oh, it's
world.
perfect.
Yeah, so I read
Yeah.
it, and then I could really identify with what they were saying in the story. Like, do you want to do something different? You want to do something unconventional? You should do it because at one on one hand I was thinking, okay, let's do it, and then on the other hand I'm like, oh my goodness, like what is it, so there was a bit of fear, and then I was like procrastinating, so it didn't happen like this. Like, I didn't pack my
Hmm.
bag in one day and then just flew over. Basically, I was thinking about it, struggling a little bit, like, okay, like, do I really want to make this move? Do I really want to move overseas? Because one of the things was I was looking for other opportunities, like with other job search, trying to get companies going that going to transfer me overseas, but somehow it didn't happen. And so I thought, if no one's going to, offer me a job that moves me overseas, how about me moving overseas and then finding that
Hmm.
job? And that was sort of like,
I
yeah.
love this. Love this. Yeah. Yeah. So it's so like just create your own path, right? Like so many of us, we wait for opportunities to come to us. We wait for this and that to happen. But what you are saying is that don't wait for those things to come to you. Create your own path. Oh, I love this. Oh, this is so good.
Oh yeah, I think it definitely is, because what I felt was there was a lot of thinking that I had done beforehand. I mean, one of the most important part that I thought about was actually I always wanted to learn a lot of new things, new skills, because I studied IT at university. So I was always like, okay, if I want to get that company job to get me overseas, maybe I need to,
Hmm.
learn new things. So a lot of that sort of like came into place. That was one part of it, and then yeah, and then that sort of helped to make that little jump, when that sort of happened.
Yeah, yeah, this is great. So I'm sure it is not easy to come to a new country to restart like all over again. So what are some challenges that you have encountered as you embarked on this new journey?
Whew, I think that's a lot of things. So I think one of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest challenge was at that point I didn't have a work visa, so I had a working holiday visa that was going to expire in less than 12 months. That was timeline.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I was coming here without a job. So I was basically living on the savings that I had. So there was another challenge. And then I thought this was this one time to change my life around. It's like I was giving myself this one opportunity to make something,
Mm-hmm.
a radical change. But like I wanted to do it, but I wasn't sure that it was going to be 100% turning out. Like some days I was like, yes, it's going to work. And then some days it's just like, and then you just feel a little bit like depressed. I think that's really
Yeah.
common because basically you're going on the path that nobody has. Like I didn't have anybody else to ask to
Oh.
say, oh, can it be? Is there some case study before me that I can reference to? We always like to look at case studies and doing research, but I didn't really know anybody at that point. And the people that I know that went overseas, they actually had a job. So they did
Mm.
that. Or they were studying in that country and then they stayed there to find a job. So basically, it was more of like a transition. Whereas for me, I'm like, okay, let's quit this job, and then yeah, let's pack this little luggage. Let's just go over there, and then we'll send the CV, and then it should be fine. That sort of like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow. It's
yeah.
just, it's so like I can relate to your story in so many ways. And yeah, it's just like so many lots of uncertainties you don't know, but at the same time you are so courageous, right? It's just let me give this a try to see what's going to happen. Many people we will just be like, oh my God, like hold back because of our own fears. I love how it's just okay, pack it up and I will be fine. So this is great. Yeah, yeah. So was there something from Singapore that you miss a lot? I'm not just talking about like specific objects, so maybe culture or like certain other things that you feel like, oh, it's really part of your identity that you miss so much as you are kind of moving away from that chapter, so to speak.
I think there are a couple of things that I was moving away from. I think back in Singapore, because like Chinese New Year is quite a big thing. So,
Mm,
you know, like my friends would text me over Chinese New Year. My mom like, "Oh, so how are you celebrating Chinese New Year?" And I'm thinking like, well, I'm working. I didn't really, because because there's not such of much of an atmosphere here. There's only like the Chinatown, so I don't think too much about it. So I actually usually I'll be working on that day. I wouldn't take any special days off. I mean, there
mm,
was one New Year I went back, but I was so stressed. I never did that again because there was like all the stuff I had to do, and then all the visiting that I had to do, and then preparing for everything, helping with the family, and then like, oh my god, and then I was back, and then I felt so tired. It didn't feel like a
mm,
holiday. It just felt like a
yeah.
uh, overtime job, really. So I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that. So I mean, that was one of the thing, and not, I think another thing is probably like in terms of like the food wise like options. So I used to eat a lot of like Chinese food, and I was moving more towards like salads and sort of other stuff, and I was doing more cooking, I suppose, because back in Singapore it was just going out to eat. So that's the lifestyle change. And like my mom will be cooking the food at home, so I was like learning to cook. So that became a new part of this identity in a way. And one of the things that actually I would say helped me to push on is the running. So I used to do a lot of running back then when I was in Singapore to relax, to chill
Mm,
out, to sort of like, I don't know, it just, I think running gives a bit of like adrenaline pump, and then it's just sort of like clears your mind, and it
mm-hmm,
definitely helps a lot. And it was like, yeah, whenever I felt stressed, like as I mentioned earlier about when I feel really bad on those days, I feel like, oh, this is not going to work out. I sort of like just, okay, maybe let's just go running till you feel like you're keeping yourself
mm,
healthy at the same time, like you're doing something for yourself, you know. And then, as you wait for the calls from recruiters and like other
mm-hmm.
people. So I think that's like, yeah, I think that was one of like the things that I was sort of helping a little bit to push things along.
Yeah, I love what you shared here is how, like, I feel like you're talking about how your identity is not always the same. How your identity is evolving. When you were in Singapore, that is who you were, and now you are evolving, you are changing, you are learning to cook, and all those things. And I think that's why when we started the show, we have, coming, becoming, everything is like evolving. I think that's already one of my biggest takeaway from our chat so far is like nothing is fixed. As human beings, we are growing, we are organic beings, we are evolving. But unfortunately, so oftentimes we are tied to that label, and then we forget that it's just a label. We can peel it off, we can remove that label. So it's just like it's so nice to hear how you overcome some of those challenges. Just keep going and keep evolving. Yeah, yeah.
I think one of the things that actually I would like to add on is the labor that you were talking about. I think that was a really big thing for me because back then in Singapore, like for example, this show that we are doing right now, I would never be doing like a show like that. I'll be more like quiet, sort of introverted. I wasn't networking. I mean, I think that was one of the big thing, and I was like voicing my thoughts out more verbally along the way because I realized like, in this country, if you're not talking, nobody will actually know you're doing some work. So that was
Mm-hmm.
like something that was really important. Whereas more like in the Asian culture, like you're sort of taught a little bit to be like, quiet, sort of like be obedient kind of thing, and then try not to make mistakes. So a lot of times that sort of I felt that was something that I was growing, and I was being more verbal, and there was stuff actually that I thought of before long long time ago, like if I wasn't happy about something in Singapore, it would just be in my head. Like I didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
offend anyone. I just wanted to, be this nice neutral person that was like, even though I was like, why did this person say that? And like
Mm-hmm.
coming here, I think it's sort of like I rediscovered that, like I was unfolding in terms of becoming more vocal with my opinion, and that's something that's really I I don't know how to describe. It's like liberating. I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
word. I felt like something in me just sort of like open up, like this little flower thing. I think something like that along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, yeah, I felt so good that I can actually say I'm starting to dare to say stuff that even if it could offend someone, because I think it goes back to a little bit about this Asian culture where you are supposed to be respectful, even if there's something you sort of, you're not considered like an equal in that sense. You're considered like this younger generation, and somehow or other, I think I've unconsciously conformed to that
Mm-hmm.
identity to sort of like keep the peace. Keep the peace.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to create conflict and things like that. And I think that was a big change for me. Like now, I'm sort of like, if I don't like this, I'm like, no, that's like not for me. And then to say no, I think before that I was more like saying yes to a lot of things because I thought, oh, it's fine. And
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah, oh, this is such a great point because I can relate to every single point you mentioned so well. Because like what I'm saying, what I'm hearing from you is that your life before London was like even your identity was mainly a reflection of societal norms, right? What people do and in Singapore and what you are supposed to do. And then coming to London, it's almost like a journey to rediscover who you are or who you used to be and then becoming a better version of yourself. Like I haven't exactly same like kind of journey and it is so nice to hear that you are the same. Yeah, and you shared quite a few stories with us already. I want you to just like tease out one instance,
Mhm.
positive or negative, but this one experience or instance or initiative or action or whatever happened that has the biggest impact on your personal development or your professional development or both.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a challenging question because I think I would say quite a lot, but I think
I want you to share one that is
one.
just yeah very just even like I think I also have as I'm trying to think about this question myself. I think there are like one or two instances that's just so emotional and even now when I think about them I can almost instantly going back to that time and just re-experience that emotion. So I wonder if there's one thing like that happens so the experience was so intense that then has turned out to be having the biggest impact on your personal and professional life.
I think it was probably the instant when I got the job. I think
Wow.
because as I was saying earlier, like I didn't know if what I was doing was really going to get me the job, and I had prepared for like think about 3 to 4 months, and then if I don't get a job, I was going to like pack up and go home. I didn't bring like everything, so there was like a time limit. And at that time, I remember I came like end of March. So if I remember rightly, I bought the plane. I can remember the date, like 29th of March 2010, and I arrived on 30th of March. And at that time, there was like the Easter holiday and there was stuff like that. So basically, when it was the bank holidays in UK, there were no jobs on the job site. Like basically, it was like nothing. And then I felt quite hopeless because there was like a couple of stuff, and I was like, there's no job for me to apply now. Like now what? Like because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't do that kind of like in-depth research. Like I didn't think, oh,
Mm,
there's this bank holiday, so there are no jobs that you can apply for. So there were days where I could apply and not apply. Yeah, and then it comes like the recruiters when they call me up, they'll say like, oh, so you need like a work visa? I say, yeah, I need the company to sponsor a visa. And then they say, oh, I'll get back to you again. And then sort of like they didn't get back. So my heart sank each time when I get like a call like that. And then
oh,
I was trying to numb myself in a way like, okay, it's like understandable. Maybe we just need to send out more. So yeah, in one of my LinkedIn posts, I think I also mentioned quite a lot about the story about how I sent like over 100 CVs. So what I did was I registered myself on all the job sites available, job site, indeed.co.uk, everything, CV library. I was like loading up my CV entire time, and in between as well, I got like a job a little bit as like in the events, like carrying like canopies and stuff. I mean, that was the first time I was doing something like this, and I don't know, I was really struggling with that job as well because I think my arms are really weak, and then I was struggling to sort of like get people to take the food away from me. So, and I think all these little struggles, and then in my back of my head, I'm like, okay, this income is going to help me to get this job. And I tried to believe in it that, I'm going to get this
Oh,
job. And then I sent out so many CVs, I had calls. I think I had one interview, and then there was this other my manager at that point, so he became my manager. So finally, after a long time, so there was two interviews scheduled. So this one was at that's a company like Haymarket, which I worked with. And what happened was I was like, okay, I got this job interview. By that time, I was sort of like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to get a job. So I was thinking more of like,
oh,
just go there and have an experience. I wasn't thinking like, yes, I'm going to get this job. Because at that point, I think that was like May, or sort of, yeah, end of May kind of thing. At that point, I was already there for like 3 months. So
oh,
I didn't want to get my hopes too high. So that's what I sort of like did. I was like, just went there thinking, okay, let's just go to this company. If not anything, you get a experience with a British company. So I went there, and this location is sort of outside London in Zone 6. So I still remember I took the train out and then went out all the way. And because in London the ground is quite uneven, so I was thinking
mm,
I need to wear some high heels. So I was wearing flat shoes, and then I had to like first time to pack along, because in Singapore, if I was going for an interview, I'll wear the same high heel shoes from home to the office. But in this case, like I couldn't walk, I'll be in pain, and then I was going to be late if I have to walk that slowly. So I basically have to, change the shoes halfway, going over there, and then sort of like, okay, that's it. And it was so funny because I was at the reception and I forgot who was going to interview me. So I forgot the name.
because you were just stressed out or what,
Yeah,
or
I
you
was
just
like stressed out over like, okay, we need to get there, and then I realized like, oh shit, like who is the person I'm supposed to meet? Great, like it's like, and then I was like, oh shit, I can't really let that person know. I don't know who I'm actually meeting, and I was like trying to think very hard, like, okay, I think this is person, and then I told the name, and then I got to the interview, and it was really really cool. It went really smoothly, and then my manager, I think it's a bit of luck that I had him, because he's international. Like he's not a local. He has,
mm,
he's the kind of person who's very creative, kind of person, like innovative and willing to think out of the box, even though he has been in the same company for a while. And so I think that was like me meeting him. That was actually the chance, but at that point I didn't see it. So I just thought, okay, no, let's have a chat. And he was so impressed with my story, and how, because he wanted to hire like a business intelligence analyst. So it was, I think there's a lot of things that comes into play, which I will sort of slowly go into. Is like, another part is the company had, the revenue numbers were going down. There was the
mm,
digital revolution back then in 2010.
mm,
So people were starting to use all this technology and different things. So they were struggling with their business model. So they were going to create this new team called business intelligence. And because back then in Singapore, I was in Microsoft, so he saw this like, okay, Asian person, you know, seems like thinking out of the box, so different culture, because the company was very British. Like most of them were
mm,
locals.
mm.
And that was sort of like, yeah, and then I sort of impressed him with this blue chip company that I work with. And he was, yeah, so he's sort of basically on the spot, this conversation. He was just like, okay,
You're
I'm
high.
going to get you. No, I'm going to get you for the second interview, like right on the spot on the first interview. So that was like, oh, okay, right. And then he was sending me some assignments to do, some analysis report that I was going to have to present on the second round, and he was going to get his manager to come in. And that was like, yeah, I went home, and that was like me starting to look at Google Analytics data. I mean, like, it was interesting because that's when my preparation back in Singapore, like learning more about data analysis, came in. I mean, I didn't know
Mm,
I was going to get a job like analyzing Google Analytics. Like, I haven't heard of Google Analytics before that. So it was like, okay, yeah, let's do this analysis. And I was like, okay, super excited. And then I went there the second time. Do you know, actually, I have to tell you this funny story. Do you know, by right, when you go to what do you call that? You, after an interview, you send like a thank you email, right?
mm-hmm.
And then I don't know, I was thinking of like, how should I say it? how do they say it here to thank you this email? I was thinking about it, yeah. And then he sent me the assignment already. He beat me in sending a reply back to him. And I was like,
They
oh
really
yeah,
want you. Yeah.
that was really funny. Yeah, because I was worried, like, oh my god, like if I don't send it now, is it like getting too late? Am I rude and not following the protocol? And then it was all for nothing because he was just like, okay, it was great. Like, here's the assignment. Like, get started. Yeah. So I did all of this bits, and then when I went for the interview, he was super impressed. His manager was also impressed. So basically, the presentation I did, the recommendations was much better because he had done this analysis himself before. But me coming from a
Mhm.
more analytical background was able to give like even more insights into what he was doing and recommendations. So he basically said like, "Yay! Like you've got the job." So that was
Oh.
like, I mean, not really on the spot. Like he sent me like an email and stuff much later on. But basically, what I felt was when he actually offered me the job. Like he sent this email, like I think a week or something, or a few days later. I can't remember. But basically, he was just saying like, "Yeah, we are pleased to offer you this job." And I was like, "Really?" And it's like I don't know. At that point, I felt like it was like a long dream. Sort of, it felt like
Mm.
something really happened. I can't really like say it, but it's just like, do you know when maybe when
Mhm.
you're young, you're like, oh yeah, I wish this would happen or wish, but at that point, I felt that it was never really going to happen. I would sort of have to sort of like, you know, be prepared to go back. And then at the
Mhm.
time, he actually said like, oh yes, we're gonna offer you the job and we're gonna work out the visa stuff. And that
Oh.
was like, oh my god, okay, like this is like a dream come true. And I was so excited, and I was like, oh my god, like really, like. And that was when I felt very strongly about, and this is what I share with a lot of people, is if you really 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 want to do something really unconventional and no one has done it before, if you keep working towards it, like there is no path, they can't say, okay, you do this, taking all the steps, it's going to get you to the destination. But if you know, like, okay, let's say if you want to move overseas, so it means like you need more skills, you want to think about upgrading your skills, and then, you know, what you can do to sort of like somehow get there. You need to sort of improve yourself, you know, become
Mhm.
better. So, you know, if you are planning to migrate in this case, or if you want like a better job, I mean, it's relevant anyways. You always need to have this knowledge, like better to becoming better all the time. So if you become better than other people, at some point, whatever you want, things are going to happen if you sort of know, you
Mhm.
know, how to improve at it. But if you sort of like, you know, you're bored at your job, or you don't really like, you know, what you're doing, your lifestyle, and you're sitting there like, oh, I hate my job. I don't like this. I don't like that.
Mhm.
And you're just like complaining like all the time. I mean, like, I hate to say this, but if you're talking about the same topic all the time every week with your friends because you were stressed the entire week, that's not going to change a thing. You're just going to go back
Mhm.
and you're going to repeat the whole story. And it's just like this little vicious cycle, which I couldn't imagine. So in my head, I was like, oh my goodness, for the next 10 years, like every week I'm going to be whiny. I'm going to be like this bitter person that's like, why is my life like this? Or, you know, should we try to break out of it?
Mhm. Oh, I love this story and just so many great points. And I love how you like you mentioned you send out so many resumes and almost give up, but you didn't. You just kept going, and believed in yourself, and just wow. I hope everyone who's watching this right now or joining us watching the replay just feels so inspired by your story because I am. I can definitely relate. And like, was there any point that you wanted to give up? Like
Okay.
after you send out so many, you did?
I I think there are some points I was asking myself this question. Do you think something is going to happen? Like, is it worth doing it? But I think what I was thinking of was because I didn't see any opportunities before. So if you remember, like earlier on, I was talking about how I was looking for different jobs, different companies to make some changes, and it didn't happen. And for me, it was like, for once in a lifetime, I'm doing this for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's like to make it or to break it. So if it didn't work out, I felt like at least I've done something to try to change things rather than sitting there. So when I actually was, you know, just sending out the CV, I tried not to think about, I try to block out the negative thoughts. What
Mm.
sometimes I succeed, sometimes I didn't. So it just sort of like keeps coming back. I'm like, okay, don't think too much. Just send out this CV. So I edited different versions of the CV for different jobs as well. I keep
Mm-hmm.
iterating it many times, and it was actually quite. I mean, I've had this little collection of different versions of CV of different jobs that I was applying to. I became quite good.
Well,
Yeah. Do you, in fact, right? A lot of people they get a lot of like career coach to edit their CV. I would say I managed to somehow align my CV to look much better, to tell a coherent story back then. Because back in Singapore, I have to go back a little bit. It was like I had different job roles, and they were
mm,
not exactly straight path to show that I'm progressing in this career. So what
yeah.
I did was I tried to line it up together so it looks like, oh yes, she's like improving. Because I think that was the most important part that I didn't learn about CV is you need to actually like create like a coherent story to say you're building up certain expertise that will make you suitable for
Mm,
certain jobs, like highlighting your best achievement in that job rather than saying like your daily responsibilities. So that's coming from someone who didn't know you can actually ask people for help, and I was like, okay. And then I was like going online looking at what other people that who are doing these job roles, how their CV look like, and I was like, okay, let's change this so that it will look like, more impressive in that way, like
mm-hmm.
repackaging my CV. So that was one
Mm-hmm.
of the things that was like, yeah. So
Well,
yeah, that helped.
it's just quite an amazing story and quite an amazing journey. So I also love how you mentioned you are never like I'm the same, like if you don't enjoy where you are or your current life, do something about it. Don't just complain because complaining only perpetuates the status quo, the reality. So as you are like continuously improving and learning and becoming better than the version of you from yesterday, and what are some like if there's any like scary decisions that you have made on this new journey that also had like kind of an impact in terms of your career, where you're going, and where you are now today?
Oh, I think that was like first part was probably like me coming here. The second part was probably when I actually decided to quit the job.
This is perfect. This is perfect emotionally. Okay, we're excited. Okay, you just got this job, and now you're like, okay, quitting the job. So tell us more about this.
Yeah, so and I got that job, but because I needed a visa, so I was at that job for about like 5 years plus, and then when I got my visa, and then I realized that this thing about the grass was actually not greener on the other side. The thing about the grass greener on the other side, I thought, oh, the companies will be better. There will be no politics. Everyone's gonna be really cool and nice. Yeah, well, I think this stuff is actually happens everywhere. It's not just like in Singapore and stuff. It just somehow like it depends a lot on the manager you have. But then, if you don't have a good manager, even if the company is good, it's just not going to be a good experience. That's what I've learned. And then I sort of, yeah, and then one of the other things was because I felt stagnated if I was in the same job for a long time. I felt like doing the same thing over and over again. I think that doesn't excite me at all. And to be honest, I think it's also because I went through like the period when there was a lot of redundancy being made. So
Mm-hmm.
when I just stepped out in my career, I saw like the first company I was working with was like BP, and
Mm-hmm.
after the crisis, they actually let a lot of people go off, even though they could have been working there for a while. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be someone passive there, like skills not improving at some point. You know, when you work very hard for the company say, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you for your contribution, but
Mm-hmm.
our revenue is not doing so great. We're going to have to restructure the business and we're going to have to let you go. So I didn't want to be in that passive position because I imagine like if you had mortgage to pay or if you have kids, and then at some point they say they're gonna let you go, and then everything
Just like
depends on
that.
that salary. Like, sure, that doesn't like make sense to me. So I was actually scared in a way because I think it's the technology age as well, and a lot of things are changing as we know. The roles are changing, responsibilities are changing, for every company, the roles and the processes, the responsibilities are evolving. So if you're not actually keeping up with it, like it doesn't matter where you are, you're going to be likely you have to be chopped off because they will have to restructure
Mm.
their process. And if you're not relevant, you're doing something that's manual task that someone else can do it. If you are like someone with 10 years of experience doing something that a fresh graduate can do, my goodness, you are in you're deep trouble. Yeah, because you are receiving that much money, the fresh grad doesn't goes not going
Sure.
to need that much like of a salary, and he can do what you did. So if you're in terms of like a business owner perspective, of course, you know you would let this person go because someone else can do that stuff. And that's why you have to be constantly learning, being relevant, showing that you with the experience, constantly upgrading yourself, you're still the best in that field. Like this fresh graduate, it's not going to be able to replace you. You are irreplaceable. So if you are
Yeah.
irreplaceable, and then you have the power, so even if this company decides to let you go, another one will be like, oh no, if you don't want, I'm going to grab this person up because this person is really really good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love this because I just interviewed Seth Godin, and he like now I'm just reading lots of his books, revisiting some of his classics, and he talks exactly about this point that you need to become indispensable. So I have a kind of follow-up question for you, Clarice. You were scared of being made redundant, but at the same time, you made the most scary decision to quit your job. So how did you make that happen? To like, is this one more scarier than the other one, or like
Oh
how?
yeah, it
Yeah.
was. I keep thinking about that when I first quit the job. I was thinking about it like, is it the right choice? Should I have done that? I think at the beginning I was more like, okay, it shouldn't be that difficult, isn't it? Like everyone's doing it. And then after I did that, and then things didn't go like that smoothly, I was sort of like thinking, okay, maybe I'm not ready yet, or something.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, I think I had some plans that I was going to get to quit the job when I was maybe 40. Like when I've gained enough experience, I should be able to start on myself. And then I didn't do that. I think I did that when I was like, was it like how? Yeah, I think I did it when I was 33 or 34. Yeah, some years back, or 4 years ago now. And then I was like, okay. So there was like good times and there was bad times. And during those bad times, it was really bad in terms of like I questioned my decision. I was thinking maybe I should start looking for a job now. And I was going on the job sites thinking if I wanted to go on the job. But I think like in a way I was actually enjoying the freedom. Oh,
Mm.
yes, someone coming online. Yes. Hi. So, yeah, and I was thinking like, okay, I don't really actually want to go back to work for someone else. Like I want to be the one leading changes. I want to be coming up with the ideas, coming up with the plans and executing them and seeing the changes. I don't want to just be like the execution of someone else's idea because sometimes I don't really like agree with the ideas. And it's sort of like, yeah, it sort of didn't I think it didn't resonate with me that I have to listen to other people. I felt I had a lot of
Mm.
great ideas. So it's sort of like, yeah, it sort of made me feel like I want to be in charge of my own fate and
Mm.
destiny. I mean, like to put it in a more cliche way, like, take charge of your, destiny. And I think it sort of also made me come to a lot of realization about myself, like what are my
Mm.
strengths, what are my weaknesses, and yeah, and then I think it's a really good journey, even though it was super terrifying. I wish I had done more research before I made that move.
Mm-hmm.
But one
Mm-hmm.
thing I
Mm-hmm.
did was, I think I didn't always want to work in a job. So what I did was I was always keeping some money like away for rainy days.
Mm.
And that was the rainy period to actually start using the funds that actually I've saved up. So I did have some kind of like backup. When I quit my job, I didn't just go like, oh yeah, let's quit the job and not get a job. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually had a job offer actually after I quit the job. But I decided to reject it in the end because I don't know. I think I
Wow.
was like, I mean, I was thinking to accept it, and then it was really interesting because I talked to my family about it. I said, "Oh yeah, I have this job offer," and then my father, being more traditional, being more Asian, he was asking, "So what salary are you getting?" And then when I told him the salary, and he was just like, "Oh, there's only that amount of increment, really?" And then I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like even he said it in that way, and then I was like rethinking about it, like, do I really want to go back to corporate life like with this amount of incentive, or do I want to take the chance to try something new and then take charge of my own destiny? I can decide who I want to work with. I can decide like what I want to do. And then it was like, yeah, it was a super big decision, and then I rethought about it. And then the funny part was because I actually really wanted to reject that job offer because they had already offered me the
Wow.
contract, everything. So when they sent me the contract in an envelope, it was in this red envelope. Do you know, red envelope instead of like a white envelope? So I took it as like a sign from the gods or something, telling me nobody sends a red envelope to be like a letter. They just sent white. I was like, okay. And then they even put my name wrongly, and I was like, oh, this is a sign. Yeah, take the chance. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, okay, maybe this is someone's hinting at me to say to reject this job offer because they had my name listed wrongly on the envelope when they sent it to me. So
Wow.
I think I was just finding excuses to say like no, because I didn't really dare to make that final move yet. So I was trying to look for external signals to sort of push me, because it is very scary, because I was going to have
Oh,
no job.
I
Yeah, in a country where my family is not here, my family is in Singapore. Do you see?
I know. It's like this is so amazing, and this just makes me like admire you even more because I know, like, as an entrepreneur, I know this the first year or maybe even the first 2 years, you are not going to make huge amount of money, right? Probably not the same amount as how much you regularly get paid, but even in that spot, and you had the courage to say no to another job offer. And that shows me that you just know exactly what you want in life. You're very clear. Is that right? And you
I would
because
say
you
that I
see,
was clear, but I felt that there was a lot of limitations. Like I was thinking, okay, like, do I have enough money to pay rent? Is it going to really work out? How is this jump that I'm going to take? Like, is it going to like, I had to like see what this was unfolding. So I did a bit
Mhm.
of like research, and then I was trying, okay, how many clients I need to get, trying to do some mathematics if I sell some product. I didn't exactly jump in, because to be honest, me doing jumps, this leap of faith in these two different experience, it's something that I would never really do, because it's not my nature to actually be spontaneous. I'm the kind of person who likes to be prepared in advance. Like,
Wow,
okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm not just going to like, oh yeah, let's quit the job and see what we do tomorrow. That's not me. But like me rejecting the job offer was a very big move as well, in terms of like character and
wow,
personality. This is something that I
wow.
would yeah, I would never do.
Wow, this is just like it's so much good points you packed in that like quick story, and I love what Mayton. Thank you so much for joining us live. By the way, she said that take the chance. That's such a great way to kind of summarize and describe your story. So this is a perfect transition to my next question. You shared lots of like lows and ups and downs
Mm-hmm.
and emotional journeys, and what do you think are some of the core values or habits that you have and that kept you going, that helps you overcome all those like self negative talks and like difficulties, finding a job, quitting a job, being in that uncertain zone, even though it's not your pure, like it doesn't come to you naturally. So what are some core values or habits that kept you going on this journey, Clarice?
I think it was the running. I think the running helped a lot,
Running?
because yeah, there's the adrenaline push and stuff. So whenever I feel like not that motivated and stuff, I did running. That I did that quite often. So I sort of like try to keep doing things. And yeah, so the other thing was actually, I think was I was going out to meet like new people, and then talking to other people with their stories.
Mm,
Like,
Mhm.
if I'm like down and I meet someone at a networking event and then they share their inspiring stories, and then I'm just like, oh my goodness, this person is like few steps ahead and they actually overcome challenges that's even, I don't know, seems more difficult to me. And then they actually went through it. Like, what's my problem? It's like just a small thing. People
Mhm.
doing more because, for example, like, um, one of my friends, Candice Costa, who's going to be one of her guests in the next few months. So she was telling me her story when I met her on LinkedIn, and it was like she told me about how she had a child when she was like 18, and then how she
Mhm.
had to support the son, and then going out to work, being like a single mom at that age. And I was like, okay, I can't visualize myself doing that. That's more terrifying than anything else.
Mhm.
So I just felt like, okay, if someone else has done it, much sort of like more experience, and even the most difficult times that they've shared with me, they've gone through it and they've become a better person. This person didn't become negative and stuff. I was like, you can do it too. Yeah, it's not such a big thing, isn't it? So
Mhm.
it makes my problem seem smaller in comparison. And I was like, okay, it's not a life and death issue, so it's okay. So that's what I was like, yeah, thinking about. So that was sort of like, yeah, it was,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's great. And you were talking about LinkedIn, and so nowadays you have such an amazing community on LinkedIn. Actually, that's where Clarice, you and I first got connected. And it was last year, maybe in summer. I was like, wow, who is this lady? Like, I think for that post, you were talking about how important it is to comment on other people's posts. And for that particular LinkedIn post, I think it was also your very first LinkedIn video. And there were like hundreds, hundreds of comments, and people were just so supportive. I was like, oh my goodness, this lady is just so amazing. I want to get to know you. And so I want to ask you, as now your career is like rising up and you're doing so well, being recognized and doing workshops, becoming a LinkedIn influencer. And I want to know to what extent and in what aspects, like social media or technology, have helped you to like develop and like grow your professional career.
I think LinkedIn is a very crucial part because the way people interact is different from before. Like, if you ask me like 10 years ago, would I be doing a show like this? No. Would I be talking to random strangers on LinkedIn? No. Would I be publishing posts, videos on LinkedIn? No. So I think like this technology thing is sort of helped me to sort of put my voice out. And one of the incredible parts about it is like which you mentioned about this post that I was putting up on my story is that I felt like I receive a lot of like inspirations from people that I have talked to or worked with, and I wanted to share sort of like my story because I feel that if it empowers people to sort of take that step, so maybe if they're going through a tough patch, sharing your story, sort of give them this little push because this journey of creating your own path, it goes like up and down. So during that down part, if you have no one to support, if you have no partner to talk to, there's no
Amen.
accountability,
Amen.
yeah, it's super tough. And that's when you go out and meet people and then you share their stories, you're like, oh, okay, something similar, maybe not exactly the same. Okay, maybe, open up some ideas that you can maybe explore, or resources or people you can talk to sort of bring you out of that sort of like down time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, so many great points. And I love, like, I feel like we have been talking about this a lot. When there's no path, create your own. I feel like for many people like us who have left our home country and just go to a new country with no friends, nothing, no money, nothing, it's really like just take a leap of faith, right? Creating your own path. And I think you have done such a remarkable job at like, even though there are ups and downs, you kept going and you just like don't give up. You believed in yourself. I hope everyone, we have a few people join us live and just like learn from this. Maybe not necessarily going to a different country, but even in our daily lives, we encounter like like failures or like risks. So many of us, especially as we get older, we just feel like, oh, I don't want to, but really just like take the risk. I just love this. Yeah, yeah. So what is next for you, Clarice? And share with us.
Ooh, okay. So there's a lot of upcoming things. Like January has been wonderful. I was listed by Planable as one of the top social media influencers. I was like,
Yeah!
yay! I think that was really cool because it made me feel like, the efforts are sort of like bearing its fruits. I think it's really important because a lot of people think that, doing all this stuff, it's sort of you become famous overnight and stuff. It doesn't. It takes a while to build up your reputation and things like that. So that's very, very important. So that's coming into play. And then I started giving like Google Analytics workshop, which was earlier this afternoon, and it was awesome. Everyone really enjoyed it, and I was able to share my excitement about this topic. So that's sort of like coming into play. And of course, us starting this show, which is one of the new plans going forward. So I'm really excited because this is a topic that's really close to my heart.
Mm.
Like even
Oh,
though it's like I was like going to 10 o'clock my time, and it's like early your time about 6, going to 6 o'clock, or is it 7? Yeah, I just felt like okay, I can do this because it's a topic that I'm really excited and I want to share my story. So this is like one of the new projects that I'm doing, and of course I'm going to be creating more videos as well, and constantly like improving. That's one of the key things. I'm going to work more on like LinkedIn and videos as well, because video is one of the most important parts for going forward in this year and next year. So I think like creating high quality videos is something that I want to sort of focus on, and helping my
mm,
clients to work on that, together with of course
yeah,
creating content, good content strategy. I think that's something I'm
yeah.
really excited about.
Yeah, I think like I so resonate with every point you mentioned. Like our show, we have quite a few people joining us. Thank you so much, Mayton team and Jerry, and for the comments. And really, we want to encourage others to not be just so content. Not maybe content is not a good word. To be just like okay, in this okay with the status quo, but to like make an effort to improve. Even for you, you are in my eye, you are already so good with like video and LinkedIn everything, but you kept mentioning that you want to improve and do more, like all this. Like that's why we use this hashtag to become brave again. If you guys have stories of yourself becoming brave again, please do share with us and use the hashtag, because Clarice and I, we discovered that this hashtag is pretty unique. Not many people
Yeah.
are using this. This is like ours. So please do share your story with us, and maybe one day you can come to the show and share your story with us. And we have this really amazing global community. And it was like 5 a.m. for me when we started. It was like 9 p.m. for her. And I just like really enjoy doing this, and just hearing the story from Clarice tonight just makes me feel even more inspired. So knowing what you know now, Clarice, what advice would you give to your younger self or others who are embarking on a similar journey?
Number one, network. Go on LinkedIn, talk to different people. Don't be afraid. You know, do that, and then sort of building up a community. It really helps because if you don't step out and talk to people, people don't know you need help. So that's really important. Be visible. Start doing videos if you can, and always think about upgrading yourself. Like if you visualize at some point you want to, become like a global speaker, maybe, and you can't talk, you can't really, you get like shy when you're on stage. You actually really want to like maybe go to Toastmasters, start, picking up, because you are not going to become an expert on day one. So you just want to be constantly always learning, the always learning attitude, and and the networking part, which is really important. And I think like building your personal brand, I think this is really, really
Mm,
useful going forward, because if you don't sell yourself, you're not voicing, you're not putting yourself out, people can't find you. Opportunities are not going to land on your lap if you're at home, sitting down, not connected to anyone, with your door locked and you're not meeting anybody. They're not going to fall on your lap. So that's
mhm,
really, really, really important. So you want to actually do that. Yeah.
mhm. Oh, I love those two tips. And we are actually just wrapping up here. And so my last question for you is, if you could do dinner with one person you respect, you admire so much, what would that person be? Me? I'm just kidding. I'm trying to add some humor to our kind of serious conversation.
Yeah, I
Anyway, so
assume that
what would that person be?
yeah, if I had going to have dinner, I assume that we having dinner together is already like a foregone conclusion. You're not gonna say no, so it's gonna happen as long as we're in the same country somewhere. So yeah, it's not you. Sorry, it's a wish list. I think I'll be interested to probably talk to this lady. Actually, I got inspired with like some time back, which is like Marie Folio. I think that was one of the few personalities that I've seen on video when she first started out, and I think a lot of her videos was like really impressive, like the way she deliver. She's doing
Mm-hmm.
that same message, and she's like so real. So I think that could be a person. I mean, I don't really have one particular person, but you wanted me to name one, so
Yeah. Oh, I love her, love her. Yes, I think, yeah, just like her, she's just so real, right? You can almost imagine that is how she is and who she is in person. I love her podcast. I love her video. She's like, yeah, I'm also a fan. Yeah. That would be great if one day the three of us can do dinner. Perfect. Yeah.
yeah, maybe
So
they'll invite us onto a show at some point.
that's our okay, guys. Did you guys hear this? That's our goal. Okay, become brave again. Be on her show. Amen. This is public. Yes, I'm on. Yes.
Yeah,
So
become brave again. Yes.
see, people are giving us high fives.
Yeah,
Yes,
high
thank you.
five back.
So where can people learn more about you? You just have such an amazing story, and I'm even though I feel like I know you already pretty well, I'm learning new things about you, and I'm feeling just so inspired again. Even though right now it's like 7 a.m., I'm just so fired up.
I know. Me too. So yeah.
So yeah, share with us your website or social media handles. So where can people discover you?
Right, so I'm on a lot of social media channels. So I have my website, which is claricelin.com, and I'm on LinkedIn. You can search for me, Clarice Lin, and I'm on Twitter as well, and Instagram as Miss Clarice Lin, because I was a bit slow to the channel and then it got taken away, so I couldn't have my name. It's quite a bit sad. Yeah, and I'm also on Facebook, so it's like really really cool. And yeah, there's something I want to mention before it's go off as you guys, if you're watching, if you find this show really inspiring and motivational, please share it out and ask people to subscribe to our channel. And so we have plans to do it like a monthly show. So for next month, on the last Thursday of the month, it's the next guest is I over here. Yay! So she has a really exciting and inspiring story as well, because I is originally from China, and she left her country at the age of 24 to chase her American dream. With no money, no friends, no network, and I assume that English is probably not so strong as well. And starting a new life from there. And she even did her PhD, if you notice like her name, and then she's a professor at the university. Yes, and yeah, I mean this it's really amazing, and I'm just I can't imagine sort of how she did all of that. So if you guys want to learn more about that, what was her journey, about her struggles in a totally foreign country, speaking a language that she's not familiar with, remember to tune in last Thursday of next month, which is I believe is on the 28th of February, the last day, the same time on the same channel. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the teaser. And yes, I'm so excited to share my story. Definitely lots of emotional ups and downs, and like I already anticipate some tears coming from me because if you know me, I'm a very emotional person. And so yes, and throughout this, throughout the upcoming weeks, we're going to share like updates and the teasers. And please subscribe to our channel and share this with others. And if you know anyone who have stories of leaving their home country and pursuing their dreams and becoming brave again. Maybe yourself. Please nominate and share this person with either Clarice or I. And we want to share their stories. Our mission is to inspire others, as many people as possible, especially minorities, but don't have to become brave again, to embrace this digital platform to share their stories so that they can inspire others. We see this as a movement, right, Clarice? Become brave again. It's a movement. And we want you to be part of this movement. So thank you so much for an amazing interview, Clarice. And I can't wait to learn more about you and to share this episode with others and to do another interview next month. And thank you everyone for
Thank you,
joining us
everyone.
live. This is our first one. So
Yes, we
seeing
appreciate
people
your
join us
support.
live means like, oh my God, so much, so much. So thank you.
Thank you for all of you who are there joining us live. Your support is really appreciated because this is our first time, and we appreciate all of you giving us the inspiration to sort of do this show. To bring along this movement. So thank you.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Bye for
Yes.
now.
Bye for now. Take care, everyone. See you next month, 28th of
See you.
February. Yes.
Yeah.